Our next guest will give us an inside view of the 2024 presidential race, the state of the U.S. economy, and more. Let's welcome Wilbur Ross, who had a 55-year career on Wall Street before being tapped for a top job in D.C. as Commerce Secretary in the Trump administration. His new book is out today, Risks and Returns, Creating Success in Business and Life. And thanks for joining us, Wilbur. Just looking quickly, I've known you for so long, and you've been coming on Squawk Box for, well, you're on Wall Street for 55 years. I say you've been coming on, on Squawk Box for at least...
I think I was on your first show.
So 35 years.
Yeah.
Or no, 30 years, because it was 1995. So about 30 years, I think you were too. So we've watched you come in and get called in emergency situations and in corporate bankruptcies. And I think a lot of what helped or formulated your career was the idea that when Mike Milken invented high-yield financing,
right, the
whole world changed in a very positive way.
Yep. No, it did. And strangely, that's really what started my career. And then later in it, I represented the unsecured creditors in the Drexel bankruptcy, because Drexel went from being the most profitable Wall Street firm, $500 million after taxes, to bust in 2 years. Wow. When the junk bond market collapsed.
And I've looked back and tried to figure that out. Was it the government's fault Drexel collapsed, or did Drexel bring it on itself?
Oh, I think it was a whole lot of things. You had a bad economic environment, you had rates go up, and Drexel also had been losing market share. In the earlier days, they had a 70+% market share. They were down to about 40% later on. Now, that's still pretty darn good, 40%, but it means you're down almost half from where you were.
I do remember, I've always thought the park, compared to what Ivan Boesky was involved with, the stuff Mike Milken did, he was parking stock, he was doing a couple of things. It looked like the government wanted to get Drexel in it, as it turned out that they finally did. Talk about, because we don't have you on here, we could do a episodic interview that lasts hours, Wilbur, but we've got competing economic visions. You would still, I guess, offer an ardent defense of the Trump economic plan that he had in 2016 and the results as well?
Oh, absolutely. And it was interesting. Toward the end of our administration, when business leaders would come in to see me, they were more grateful for regulatory relief than they were even for the tax relief. Because when you have regulatory relief, you can plan. You can make capital expenditures. Business can deal with success, can deal with failure. Uncertainty is very, very difficult for it to deal with.
I watched you last night on, for me anyway, the show of record during the day, Brett there, and you were actually the network that did not mention James Earl Jones did the voiceover for that other network. But you gave an answer, I thought, for not maybe a unvarnished defense of tariffs, but in certain cases you can say that it is the last resort, and it cannot flow directly into a tax on U.S. consumers?
No, it's not, for several reasons. Number one, the government whose employers have been sending us the dumped material, government usually picks up part of the extra tariff we put in. The company itself...
The other government?
Yeah, the other government.
So
they eat part of it.
Okay, they eat part of it.
Yeah. Second, when, let's say it's a tariff on China and it's 20% on Chinese goods, that doesn't mean the prices will go up 20%. What will happen, supply will come from the next cheapest supplier.
In a different part of the world, theoretically.
In a different part of the world.
Netherlands.
And it may be up 2%, 5%. So all the stuff that there's this automaticity of, in effect, a tax on consumers is simply not the way it works.
Okay, but if that's...